Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Heather Cirmo on the line with us. Texas is engaged in some rather strange, well, from my point of view, rather strange behavior with regard to sex education. Heather, welcome back to the program.
Great to be on, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I hope all is well with you and in your world. I should introduce you appropriately. Heather is a blogger, and she's associate with Blueskin Solutions. HeatherCirmo.com is Heather's blog. And the problem with abstinence-only education, what we're seeing is that the current rate of teen pregnancies is nationwide the lowest on record since the CDC began to keep those stats in 1940. However, in states with abstinence-only education, like Mississippi, instead of being at that record low of 35 per 1,000 girls, it's at 65. It's back where other states were before they started doing comprehensive sex ed. What should we do about states like Texas and Mississippi that don't require sex ed, or when they do, they require it be abstinence-only education?
Well, I am a big proponent of states making decisions about sex education. I don't think that the federal government should be sending money to states to mandate, whether it should be abstinence only or so-called abstinence plus education. I think, outside critics weighing in on what's going on in Texas is helpful for Texans to, weigh in on in their own local communities on how their own sex education programs should be run. Parents should definitely play a role. And you know what? In preparing for this conversation today, I realized that, there are some communities in Texas, like Harris County, in which Houston is, and Midland, Texas, that are actually considering revising their sex education programs. Parents want them to talk about other things besides just abstinence, and you know what? I think that that's fine. The community value should be reflected in the sex education programs, and I can choose whether to live there or not, and I can choose whether to opt my child out of that program if I don't believe in it.
Okay, so Texas has the third highest rate of teenage births in the country, the second highest rate of repeat births to teenage girls in the country. They're ahead of Rwanda, Micronesia, and Egypt in terms of teenage pregnancies. This is pretty startling. And your argument is basically a 10th Amendment argument that the federal government should not be setting standards for or giving money to any state to create, to help mitigate what I hope we can agree is a public health problem. Do I have that right?
That is correct. No, I don't think the federal government should be mandating it. I think that the sex education program should be determined by the states and local communities.
So you're okay
the solution is not to have the federal government step in and tell Texas what to do. And there's another issue here, too, Tom, that should not be overlooked. A sex education program is a short-term thing. It happens, part of the year. Sometimes it's only a week-long program. Our society does not support abstinence-only education. And even condoms, when they are presented in the classroom, they're not sexy, and the whole idea of them being part of pop culture, it's just not happening. When was the last time you watched a sitcom or watched a movie like Bridesmaids and saw someone say, oh, wait a minute, let me put on my condom? It totally ruins the mood.
Yeah.
So, if we really want to see changes happening in our culture that are for the good, we need to see pop culture.
We can turn this into a critique of pop culture, Heather, and we probably have similar perspectives. But this is about the demonstrated relationship between states using comprehensive sex education and having lower rates of teenage pregnancies, and states refusing to use comprehensive sex education or even mandating abstinence only and calling that sex education and having exploding rates of teenage births. And my concern is that you and I, through our tax dollars, are supporting these unwed mothers. We're supporting the social ills that come along with children who are essentially unwanted, who grow up feeling unwanted, who grow up more often than not in terrible poverty, and grow up to commit crimes and be a further burden upon society in a way that could have been prevented if their mothers simply understood how human reproduction works.
Yes, that's true. I think that there needs to be...
So doesn't this fall under the general welfare clause?
But I also think, too, Tom, that within the classroom environment, there shouldn't just be an emphasis on, learning about how reproduction happens and how to prevent it and avoid it. But there also should be a deeper discussion about how to protect your heart. And I know this might sound a little cheesy to some
I
of
agree
your
with
listeners,
you.
But a condom doesn't do that, and we need to emphasize the importance of family. I mean, it's a whole societal problem, and I think Texas is facing this. They have a lot of issues that they haven't had to deal with in the past because they have so many people from all over the world, but mostly Mexico, coming in, and they're having to readjust a lot of things. And I think we're seeing things happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think that they are having to deal with the problem, but it's just not happening as fast as we like. As I mentioned, there are local communities that are reevaluating the way they are implementing sex education, and they're using parents. They're using research from companies and federal government, the federal government, what they put out there to reevaluate their programs.
That's all well and good, Heather, but that's sort of like saying back in the 50s, hey, there's some communities in the United States that allow opposite race couples to get married. That proves things are going in the right direction. Eventually we'll all get there. There's a couple communities in the United States where African Americans can sit at a lunch counter with whites. It seems to me that if this is impacting the general welfare of the United States, if this is having a substantial impact, that we shouldn't say, oh, gee, you're a member of the Lucky Sperm Club. You were born in an enlightened community in Texas. You get to learn about how human reproduction works, but your cousin who is not a member of that club, who lives in a part of Texas that's run by religious zealots, and I'm reluctant to even say that because that suggests that there's something wrong with religion or zealotry, and I think that there's something to be said for both. But who at least doesn't believe in children and particularly teenagers understanding how human reproduction works, that there's no federal role for this, and yet all of the not all of the consequences, but many of the consequences of the failures of the state of Texas and the state of Mississippi and these other states where they have mandated abstinence-only sex education, which is an oxymoron, but that's what they call it, that the consequence of that is being picked up for, is being paid for by us. Now, you could argue that the federal government shouldn't be paying for the health care of poor people and, unemployment benefits and prisons and rehabilitation and, all the other things that come along with, unwanted pregnancies, unwanted people, throwaway kids, latchkey kids, all the problems associated with poverty that are exacerbated by teenage. You could argue that, but that's not the perfect universe in which we live. The universe in which we live is one where you and I, with our tax dollars, are picking up the tab for these unwanted pregnancies that are accidental. I would, these blundering pregnancies because these kids don't understand how human reproduction works, and So anyhow, end of my rant.
But I still think that having a federal mandate, it's for one thing, we've seen it across the board. Federal mandates are really difficult to. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Well, no, they worked well in the 60s. You can't discriminate against people based on their color, on their race.
Yeah, but that's not. We're not talking about a race issue right now. We're talking about an issue that is very complicated. Sex education and how it's implemented. I don't think. Yes, I realize that in the article that you're alluding to, the Gail Collins article upon which this discussion is based, she likes to look at those strange curriculum that are out there.
But we're talking really about teaching science, Heather, aren't we? Isn't this just the science of human reproduction? Shouldn't kids get that as part of,
Yeah, and they are. What I'm trying to say is they are getting that. The whole idea that the average Texas student doesn't understand how an egg and a sperm come together is ridiculous.
Okay. Heather, we're out of time, but I'll leave you with the last word. HeatherCirmo.com. You can check it out.